Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for July 29th, 2020. Before we begin the formal portion of our meeting, I'd like to congratulate our newest addition to the commission with the appointment of Christine Burke as our newest public utility law judge. Christine has over 20 years of legal experience working for the bulk of her time for the state of Maryland as a public defender. Most recently, she served as the chief administrator of the state's parole commission, and she'll be bringing a wealth of legal experience to us as a public utility law judge. So I'd like to congratulate Judge Burke for joining the commission, and we look forward to working with her in the months and years ahead. As we turn to our business component of the meeting, we have meeting minutes to approve from the meeting on July 15th, 2020. The vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I also vote aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Mr. Secretary, the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, there are 3 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is a joint notice, or in the alternative, joint application for approval from IPI Partners LLC, DF&I Investors LP, DF&I Ashburn Holdings LLC, and Dark Fiber and Infrastructure LLC of the transfer of control of Dark Fiber and Infrastructure LLC. Item number 2 is Catalent Maryland Inc.'s request for approval non-pro-tunc of the construction of a previously installed generation facility. And finally, item number 3 is the request of Topco Associates to cancel its electricity supplier license.
Thank you very much. Do commissioners have questions of any items on the consent agenda? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask a question about item number 2 to staff or staff counsel, whoever. Good morning, Ms. Shaw.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Paige Shaw on behalf of staff.
I was curious about the buck sheet that says the name, that the applicant says the name change was kind of partially responsible for this. And it made me think, had they previously applied for this waiver under a different under the old company's name, or what was the name change reference?
So it's my understanding that in the process of them changing their names, they had some turnover in staff. So they were trying to apply with the old name, but it never quite got through. And then they changed their name and realized it never went through and reapplied with the new name. Or well, they hadn't previously applied with the old name.
Okay, that's really what I was asking. So the change in ownership I got, and the change in personnel I got, but it was the name change that was hanging me up. Why was the name significant in any of this? I was just perplexed by that. So, but it was really just the ownership and personnel changes. Mm-hmm. All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had on that.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I will move that with respect to item number 1, that we note the filing and transfer of control of Dark Fiber and Infrastructure LLC. With respect to item number 2, that we approve the applicant's construction non-pro-tunc of a previously installed generation station under Public Utilities Article Section 207.1A. And finally, with respect to item number 3, that we approve the cancellation request. The vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I vote aye. Those motions are approved. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 4 on today's administrative agenda is the application of Exajo Technology Services LLC for authority to provide local exchange telecommunication services in Maryland. On this item for staff, we have Kenneth Albert and Afton Hauer. For the Office of People's Counsel, Anna Ryan, and for the company, Carlo McDonald.
Thank you. Good morning, staff. Oh, Ms. Howard, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Afton Howard on behalf of staff. On February 20th, 2020, Exego Technology Services LLC submitted an application for authority to provide local exchange telecommunications services. Exego will provide resold local dial tone and voice over internet protocol telecommunications services. The company does not offer any residential local services. The company does not have any outstanding assessments with the Commission. In the initial filing, Exego did not file an access tariff checklist, or an affidavit. The company's access tariff checklist, and affidavit was filed on June 4, 2020 as supplemental information. The affidavit was filed instead of a local exchange tariff and satisfies the Commission's requirement for detariffing per order number 88353. Staff reviewed the filing and provided suggested revisions for the access tariff to the company. On June 19, 2020, Exego sent staff a revised copy of the access tariff via electronic communication. Staff again provided suggested revisions to the company's access tariff. On July 7, 2020, the company filed its revised tariff. However, the filed tariff did not reflect staff's proposed revisions, and on July 8, 2020, the company filed a revised access tariff that reflected staff's proposed revisions. Staff recommends the Commission grant the requested authority and grant the company the requested COMAR waivers for local exchange service providers, and direct the company to file a clean copy of the tariff with an issue date of July 8, 2020, and an effective date reflecting the date of the Commission acceptance. Now, Mr. Albert is going to address the comments made by the Office of People's Counsel and Exego's response.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. In its comments, OPC notes that the original application filed by Exego was incomplete and that Exego did not respond in a timely manner to staff's request for information. In its reply to OPC, Exego says that its delay in providing the information requested by staff was due to two factors. First, the disruption to Exego's operations caused by COVID, and second, the delay experienced by Exego in hiring a replacement for an employee who left the company. Exego asserts that, quote, it has been operating IT companies since 1992, and typically Exego is very responsive to our government requests. We will commit to responding in a timelier manner once our country has passed this pandemic. Unless otherwise, we will make our best effort to get information to you on a timely basis following the guidelines and due dates of your agency. Staff is concerned specifically by Exego's comments that Exego will, quote, will commit to responding in a timely manner once our country has passed this pandemic. Now, staff recognizes the burdens that COVID has imposed on many regulated entities, but regulated companies have a responsibility to comply with their obligations to this commission in a timely manner and in a complete manner, despite the burdens imposed by COVID. We recognize there could be unusual situations where timely compliance or full compliance is impossible due to COVID or a different factor, but in that situation, a regulated entity should be requesting relief from the Commission for that specific situation. Indeed, numerous regulated entities have asked this Commission to extend a Commission deadline or modify a regulatory requirement and have cited the disruptive impact of COVID as the basis for their request. Thus, if the Commission grants Exego's request for authorization to provide local exchange services, staff recommends the Commission make it clear to Exego that it, like any other regulated company, has a responsibility to comply in a timely manner and a complete manner with its obligations as a regulated company. Staff also asked the Commission state that if Exego believes that it cannot satisfy a regulatory requirement, Exego must ask the Commission to waive or modify the requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. That response was a bit concerning. Let us hear now from Office of People's Counsel.
I would just like to concur with what Mr. Albert said. OPC was also concerned with that response. If Exego is going to be able to provide service in Maryland during the pandemic, then we think that they ought to be able to respond as needed to any requests from the commission. So I would second and concur with the recommendations made by staff. On an additional note, I would also point out that Mr. McDonald is listed on the application as the regulatory contact. And, I would assume that regardless of what other difficulties the company is experiencing, whether related to coronavirus or staffing transitions, that Mr. McDonald himself is always capable of contacting, staff or the commission as needed to request a waiver or, discuss the circumstances.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Fortunately for us today, we have Mr. McDonald with us. So, Mr. McDonald, I'll allow you to respond to the concerns expressed by Staff Counsel and Office of People's Counsel.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, as long as we have a way to request a waiver, if some circumstance comes up due to pandemic, we are fine with that. We are committed to answering and responding on timely basis as often as possible. We always, with our government entities that we do business with or work with or have requirements on filings, we always file on time. If there's a reason that something's not filed on time, we deal with it immediately, work with the agencies and get these things filed. So my response was, if something happens and we all are curious on where things are going and we're all adjusting accordingly, but if something happens, as long as I can work with the commission and make sure that I can request a waiver, then we are fine with that. And I'm happy to respond with a letter stating that and understanding and restating my comment on that last letter.
Well, obviously, communication is important. Perhaps the response was somewhat inartful because it did sound like that EXCO would comply once the pandemic is over, and we do not know when that will occur. So just to be clear, that was not the intent of your response?
No, that was not the intent. I take it very seriously working with my government entities. We know the importance of compliance, and especially in this aspect of telecommunications. We've been in this business a long time. It was not my intention to say, hey, we'll file when we can get to it. No, we understand that there's deadlines, there's due dates. We will do everything in our power to file within that timeline. If there's an issue, we will reach out to your agency and seek a waiver if needed.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
So Mr. McDonald, there were two instances of, well, one instance of unresponsiveness and another instance of maybe a forecasted unresponsiveness. One, the unresponsiveness to the commission originally on outreach, and two, kind of a forecasted unresponsiveness. We'll get to you when the nation's over COVID. And I want to make sure that you understand that the responsiveness to this, to the regulatory oversight of the Maryland Public Service Commission is not discretionary on your part as a regulated entity. You do understand that, correct?
I understand.
So there's no discretion on your part. We'll get to you when we get to you. It's somewhere down in the pecking order.
No, there's no repercussions if we don't file on time, and we totally understand that, either in penalties or some other means. We just want to make sure that there's a mechanism to reach out to the agency if there is an issue, and that we'll work together to solve that issue. That's really what I was trying to get to.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that mechanism is simply to pick up the phone, communicate. Staff counsel will guide you as to what paperwork or exemptions or filings would need to be made in that circumstance.
Yep, understood.
Seeing no additional questions from the commissioners, I move that we grant the requested authority, that we grant the company the requested COMAR waivers for local exchange service, formerly known as Waiver Group C, and that we direct EXCO to file clean copies of its tariff with an issue date of July 8th, 2020, and effective date of July 29th, 2020. The vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Seeing no additional business on today's agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.